a potential 0.36 second optimal TTK, and a very easy 0.72 second TTK with no crit accuracy required. That's right, all body shots and only one roll on Taraxippos can do it. I wouldn't typically hype up a drop right at the end of an event, but this Guardian Game Scout Rifle has become my favorite primary weapon in all of Destiny 2, and I don't even like Scout Rifles. I think a lot of people get stuck because they can't move past the Scout Rifle part, but I'm using it almost like a sidearm at this point. Only it's a sidearm that can reach across the map with an optimal TTK that's even faster than a close range primary. I rolled nearly every version imaginable, and I've got hundreds of clips to show for it. I'm absolutely blown away with the final roll I've landed on, and I'm going to show you exactly what I've seen the most success with. Spoiler, it's not Zen Moment. Part of me wants to give all the praise to the perks on Taraxippos, but really it's everything put together that has this Scout Rifle glued to my side. Stats, perks, and the lightweight intrinsic bonus. So let's start at the base. Taraxippos has some incredible stats, just like the incredible stats of all the Destiny players who subscribe to the YouTube channel. But for real, amazing stability and nearly the highest handling and aim assist stats currently available on any legendary scout rifle in the game. And each one of those stats will come into play as we fully deck this thing out. Recoil direction and range are the worst offenders in the stats, but recoil direction we can improve, and I don't feel like range matters as much on the scout rifle as other reviews would have you believe. At least, not the way we're going to be using it. Okay, let's hammer that point home. For PvE, there will be more options than this. You've got this being a strand scout rifle that has hatchling, which is amazing for tons of extra damage at range, but for PvP, I want you to forget about the idea of sitting in the back of the map with a scout rifle. The initial range and scout rifle nature of this weapon is only a bonus for when you need it. It won't be the primary way we use it. I say this because the base time to kill value of this lightweight scout rifle is 0.9 seconds, and that's only if you're perfect. 100% headshot accuracy, that's not great. If you hit just one body shot instead of a crit, you're up to 1.2 seconds. That's downright awful. The optimal kill of most primaries in the sandbox is around 0.8 seconds. I'm not just talking SMGs and sidearms, they're even faster than that. I'm talking pulse rifles and hand cannons. Even Hung Jury has a 0.67 second TTK with box breathing. So in my opinion, we don't want to invest in having to use the scout at base. You are better off with something else. What fixes this on Taraxippos is Cascade Point. It bypasses having to use the scout at base and lets you use different weapons to push this one to extreme speed. I've got a lot of feedback on how Cascade Point is difficult for some to use, and I think that has to do with the perception of how the perk works. So let's talk about that before diving into the rest of the ideal role. Cascade Point is sort of like Harmony, except it's a faster fire rate rather than just a damage buff. So you get a kill with a different weapon, and then when you swap to your weapon with Cascade Point, it will fire at a faster RPM for a short amount of time. That said, it's dangerous to think of these perks as the same, as there are two things that are very different. First, Cascade Point varies in effectiveness depending on what type of weapon the perk is on. For example, SMGs do not get as much of a speed boost as auto rifles do, so when I saw Mossy with Destiny Massive Breakdowns discover that scout rifles got the better speed scaler, I knew I was going to want Cascade Point on a Taraxippos. It brings the RPM from 200 RPM to 333.33 RPM, with its optimal time to kill jumping from 0.9 seconds to 0.54 seconds. That's immortal target lock time to kill, but at even crazier distances. And we're going to push that time to kill further and use it in different ways in a minute, but I want to emphasize just how deadly this Cascade Point is with this faster scaler on a scout rifle versus other weapons. Harmony, which has the same requirement to get a kill with a different weapon, is not available on lightweight scout rifles, but even if it was, the damage is not enough to change the time to kill value at 10 Resil. Cascade Point nearly halves the time to kill value. It's deadly. The second thing that makes Cascade Point different is that the time to activate the perk and swap weapons is in reverse from the way you would use Harmony. With Harmony, you get a kill with a different weapon and then you have 3 seconds to swap to your Harmony weapon to activate it. Once you swap, you'll have 7 seconds while you're on your Harmony weapon to use your 20% damage buff. This encourages you to swap weapons right away when you get a kill with your other weapon. With Cascade Point, you have to break that habit to use the perk to its full extent. You don't want to swap until it's absolutely time, because Cascade Point gives you 5 seconds to have the perk stored before you swap, and then only 2.5 seconds to use Cascade Point once you swap to the Scout Rifle. I think a lot of people get hung up here, the timing. But once you make that mental shift, oh my gosh, you can melt multiple opponents with one activation of Cascade Point. If you want to do some great practice on the timing of this, run 2 weapons with Cascade Point in PvE, and work on keeping the perk active at all times, waiting to switch the weapon until you're ready to engage. Then if you really want to do some mental gymnastics, you can do what I did and run a Harmony weapon in your energy slot, and then this Scout Rifle in your primary slot for PvP. It's actually a ton of fun. I ran with the old Shira's Wrath Trials of Osiris SMG with Harmony, and getting into the gameplay loop of quickly swapping to the SMG versus taking my time swapping to the Scout was a really rewarding minigame. Okay, but what's the best role to complement Cascade Point on Taraxippos? This is where I'm going to make some pretty divisive statements. I've got 2 roles that I've landed on as must-have grabs from the event, but for both of them, I found stability and recoil direction to be more important than range. Remember the stats it comes with. It doesn't have great range, and so we're not trying to fix something here, we're just investing in what already makes this Scout unique. I've had identical roles with all range and roles with all stability, and I found my roles with more stability to give me more success in using Cascade Point. I'm a big range fan, but I spent a significant amount of time with both, and I can see why players would want to invest in more range if they were just using the Scout at base and trying to grab kill clip plays, but that's not what we're doing here. So my favorite role has been Chamber Compensator, which gives you plus 10 recoil direction while also adding some stability, a stability masterwork, and then accurized rounds for just a dash of extra range. I had a roll with steady rounds instead of accurized, and I like that too, but this roll that doesn't take away from range and still adds a ton of stability has been my favorite. I do recommend a counterbalance mod. I know it puts the recoil direction in a funky number away from ending in a 5, but I just think the combo with Chamber Compensator feels great. Now, what is the perfect perk to complement Cascade Point? I already mentioned it's not Zen Moment for me. I had some great Zen Moment and Cascade Point rolls, but none of them felt as good as my moving target rolls. I highly recommend moving target over Zen Moment, and here's why I think it felt so much better. Zen Moment requires you to connect shots to reduce recoil and give you extra flinch resistance. These are things we like, but you don't reach max stats on Zen Moment 5 until you hit 5 shots. Your optimal TTK with Taraxippos is in 4 shots. So you don't even have time to build up these stacks, and I feel like with latency and game connection, I just don't feel the benefit of Zen Moment while I'm in Cascade Point. You're downing the opponent in 0.54 seconds, I just really don't feel the difference. Even in duels, I just don't see that flinch resistance come into play. I felt like my flinch mods on my chest armor were much more effective. Moving target, on the other hand, is always active while you aim down sights and gives you plus 10 aim assist and a 2.5% reduced aim down sight movement penalty. So you're strafing slightly faster and your shots feel a little more sticky. It feels so good paired with Cascade Point. The extra movement also complements the lightweight intrinsic bonus, which for those who don't know is one of the only things in the game that lets you actually sprint faster. More valuable than the actual movement stats, so moving while strafing in ADS just fits right in. It's really no question to me, and I'm really surprised to see Zen Moment so sought after with Cascade Point when I hardly ever felt the effects. Okay, there is one more role you simply must see, and for some of you, must have. Cascade Point and Gutshot Straight. Okay, hear me out. Let me cook. No, not the Gutshot and explosive rounds. I know it affects the damage there, but you have to stack so much to make that worth it in PvP, and even then, Gutshot makes it so hard to connect headshots. So I'm not even gonna go down that rabbit hole. But Gutshot and Cascade Point is a different story. There is something here, and I had to chase it forever, and it's one of the reasons this video is so delayed. I just had to get my hands on it and feel it before I recommended it. Gutshot Straight is usually a terrible perk. I have only recommended it on one weapon type before, bows, and I'm about to recommend it again. Gutshot Straight destroys your ADS aim assist cone, making it more difficult to hit headshots, but in exchange, it gives you an increase to body shot damage while ADS. On this scout, it's a 10% buff. On its own, that doesn't do much, but when combined with Cascade Point, you're now body shotting with 0 headshot accuracy at 0.9 seconds. That's the usual 100% headshot accuracy time to kill. Did you hear that? The usual optimal 100% headshot time to kill value has become your body shot time to kill. That is laughable, and we're going to make it even more crazy. You have to get a kill to proc Cascade Point, and if you have this scout as one weapon, you're usually running a close range weapon as your other weapon you got a kill with. A sidearm, SMG, shotgun, a fusion. If you're playing Crucible the right way and running a Reaper mod so you get an orb on that kill, then you've also got Surge mods readily available when you activate Cascade Point. Here's where we go crazy. The extra gutshot damage, plus Surge times 3, plus the speed of Cascade Point lets you melt a Guardian with all body shots for a 0.72 second TTK. This all happens at once, automatically. You don't have to think about it. It sounds like a lot of stacking, but it's really not because you're just playing as normal. Using the same setup with just one Surge mod lets you hit a body shot instead of all crits on the super fast 4 bullet 0.54 second TTK with Cascade Point 2. So what I'm saying is, it's a very forgiving version of Cascade Point if you don't feel good about hitting all your headshots with the moving target roll. In the end, I think the moving target roll is still much better simply because it sticks the best, allows for better movement, and doesn't take away from your aim assist cone, but I recognize that not everyone is going to hit those headshots anyway, so don't sleep on Gutshot Straight. There are some really interesting ways to use it, and I'm really surprised no one else is talking about it. Everyone's so caught up in the explosive payload interaction, and I feel like this one really flew under the radar. Same with moving target. As I stated in the beginning, you can also push this scout to the opposite of Gutshot and go crazy damage stacking in a Well of Radiance or get Weapons of Light from a bubble. I know this is just the extreme end of TTK, but I had it happen on a whim, not searching it out or planning it. So it's at least worth a mention for the 0.36 second 3-tab. On the other end, using it suboptimally, I actually like hip firing this scout. I don't know what it is, but it just feels really accurate from the hip. I'm often jumping to get out of enemy fire or just need to react real fast and pull the trigger before ADSing, and the shots just land. Again, it's kind of like how I would use a sidearm, and I find the gun just performs the way I need it to if I treat it like one. I think Cascade Point might be flying under the radar in PvE as well. I've been having a ton of fun swapping from a machine gun with Cascade Point back to this scout, and I can't wait to fill out the trio with a Cascade Point Konorok auto rifle in the energy slot, but the RNG for that drop is just insane. Maybe next season we'll see some more options. Back to PvP, it goes without saying, but if you plan on using this scout as your primary, this entire video can get thrown out the window. Zen Moment and Kill Clip or Zen Moment and Hatchling is probably what you're looking for, but if you're like me and you're used to running an SMG or sidearm as your primary, then Taraxippos Guardian Game Scout Rifle with Cascade Point may be the primary you're looking for. This has been Lego LaFlash. You can find me on Destiny Master Breakdowns or the Destiny Community Podcast. Thank you for joining me on this one. Until next time, GG.